for my grandfather, who for half my life I believed was the only man in my family to die of natural causes. Recently, I learned that he died from a fatal yet preventable infection at his hospital. My grandfather's organs went silent because they completed the hymnal today. Today, I learned that they were muted. Learned that some doctor had enough shrugged shoulder to allow his body to decompose. And just when I think that white doves exist, I am told that another one of my blackbirds had his wings clipped. It is inhumane to be relieved that your loved one lost fair and square, that the earth swallowed them and did not regurgitate salted blood. But no, I can't even have a candlelight without somebody else's guns, nooses, and accidents showing up unannounced. I can't even have a relative move into their casket without the ringing echo that they were evicted from their bodies. Pause. Death tries me early, holds the gun to my face and tells me it's time to accept my inheritance. It is now that I realize that I live in a country where people believe in the Second Amendment more than second chances. I also realize that black people beg for their breaths with their palms, which is to say that we plead for our life with the whitest parts of our bodies. Resume. Doctors assume that just because my pop's a veteran, that his skin is invincible. How can people look at black and see armor but don't see fatigue? How come black bodies have to rot, slide out of shackles before white people check their pockets for the key? But that night is locked in my mind. My mother's cries blare like the ambulance that came too late, and I, tombstone quiet, learned apathy early. Learned to turn black death into white noise, because when you're numb to trauma, there is always dead weight in your walk. Always in America eyeing your Achilles. Me trudging through this life is not a product of my sagging pants, though I do carry my father's bones in my back pocket. Use daddy's ribs as a switchblade. My grandfather's last pulse, a reserve tank, a spare tire, because when all you're around is death, you learn to stop trying to avoid it and learn to make yours more meaningful. Because when a black child is born, we too often question whether the blanket of blood is of past or of prophecy. Of did you get this from the womb, or will you submit this to the soil? Which is to say, death tries me again, and I surrender with two closed fists. You are not taking my breath if I lend it to the earth, so my promise to the dirt is a full feast. You will have my bones and my meat and my marrow without the aftertaste of shell casing or supremacy. You will swallow me. A complete answer. I wrote this poem for a couple of people. One, I wrote this poem for my mother and the women in my family who have lost a lot of the men in my family. And I wrote this poem because I thought that I could prophesize a narrative. I thought that I could say, this is my story and I know what has happened to our family, and I will not be something that you have to mourn. I will not be somebody that you will lose. And so that may not be a tangible prediction, but it was just a little bit of optimism and hope for my family and for me to at least think that I can survive whatever will come to me. And so I wrote this poem because I really wanted to have something tangible where I could say, you know what? I will fight back, or I will overcome this. Even if I don't know what the obstacle is, I just want to prepare myself for any situation like that. I think I think I have two. So one of my favorite lines is me trudging through this life is not a product of my sagging pants, though I do carry my father's bones in my back pocket, use daddy's ribs as a switchblade, and my grandfather's pulse, a reserve tank, a spare tire. That's one of my favorite lines because I think one, it addresses kind of mental health, mental health with black boys, and thinking about when you're trudging through life, when you're not able to live as carefree and as weightless as you want to. And we talk about like how I carry the ones that I've lost with me at all times, whether that's for the better or for the worse. And I think this is really a crucial part to my identity, to have everyone that came before me still with me, and know that because they passed before their time, that I have a future filled with other people's narratives that I'm also trying to intertwine. And that just really, that line gives me hope. It's not really like a happy line, but it's kind of like it's one of my more triumphant lines in the poem, and it makes me feel like I have the ability to do what the line says. I have the ability to carry my father and my grandfathers and my uncles and all of their legacies with me as I trudge through this life, because it's difficult. It is difficult. And I think my second favorite line of the poem is, we too often question whether the blanket of blood is of past or of prophecy when a black child is born. And that for me is important, because death becomes so inherent that we often can get desensitized to it in our communities, and it's like I see, you can actually see a target before you see a person, and I've caught myself doing it before too. And I think it's really important for me, important for us to see the life in us, important for us to cherish childhood, to cherish the small things that equate to a life, and not be so focused on having to avoid death, or as death being this inevitable thing. So when we talk about when a black child is born, we too often question whether the blanket of blood is of past or of prophecy. It's like it's drawing an allusion to that time in between. It's like the time where there is no blood on us, the time where we are smiling, the times where we are actually alive. And that line for me hits, because I do not have blood on me right now. I am not dead. I'm alive, and that is something to be cherished, and that deserves a poem too. I want this poem to encourage people to reanalyze their relationship with death. I want people to be able to say, no, I am not inevitably dead. I am not inevitably a victim of something violent or heinous, or I want people to feel like they can control their own life and consequently their own death. I know that sounds kind of abstract, but I think it's important, because there was a point in my life, it was a long period in my life, where I felt like I could be susceptible to anything, because the men in my family have been, murdered, allowed to die, assassinated, and this is all my immediate family, and so it was a point in my life where I felt like I don't have any control over this, and I'm going to follow suit. But this poem really helped me, and I hope it helps other people think about what it means to be alive. What it means to have had people pass for unnatural and problematic reasons, but to know that you are still alive, and that you still have a factor in the aftermath of that. You still control a narrative, even if it's even if it's just your narrative. There are other narratives woven into that, consciously or subconsciously. And so I just think, I just hope this poem helps people shed a little weight in terms of the weight that comes with knowing death so well.